Hi there, Mansfield today, and in Springs, because it's Wednesday, Dr. Wikiskette. Hello, Doc.
Hello, Jim. How are you?
I'm all right. Why are you wanting to talk about mental health in children?
It's adolescent children. So those are the kids between 10 and 19.
Yeah.
And you always find articles and stuff about mental health in kids and in the elderly and in adults, but there seem to there's like a bit of we seem to leave them out a bit, the adolescents, and they're complicated. In fact, I saw a podcast on Monday that came onto News 24 exactly about mental health and adolescent. It's called Breaking Point. So people can go and look at that maybe as well. It's interesting.
Okay.
Psychiatrists and psychologists, they actually talk about an avalanche of people coming to try and see the psychologist, psychiatrist, and everyone's so fully booked. It's scary. So it's a real thing. But anyway, so the three things sort of come to mind when I think about adolescent mental health. It's depression, and with that anxiety probably, suicide, because that's common, it's unfortunate, and substance abuse. So in South Africa, the prevalence of substance abuse is twice that of the global
norm.
Yeah, the global norm,
Wow.
the global average. So the highest rate we find in the Western Cape. Lekker, no shame. And they sort of usually kids between 13 and 17, so that's quite scary. So the substance we think about when we talk about substance abuse is obviously the usual sort of heroin, cocaine, NOP, meths, mushrooms, LSD, but we mustn't forget about cigarettes, just the normal smoking. I mean, that's also a drug. Vaping, all the kids are vaping now, even 13, 14. You're like, what the heck? And then obviously the cannabis, alcohol, but also the over-the-counter medications, the cough syrups and codeine drugs and stuff like that, and also the prescribed medicines, antidepressants that they get hold of, or Ritalin, or stuff for anxiety. It's scary. There's a hell of a lot of stuff out there. So that's why I thought today is the day. We can talk about those.
Okay. What are the risk? There must be risk factors, obviously, for mental health in adolescents.
Yeah, for sure. So I think family history is important. So if you've got a family member with anxiety or depression, like a mom or dad or sister, that's very common. I see that often. Or family dysfunction, when you've got substance abuse in the family, or domestic violence or divorce, those things play a role. Kids with low self-esteem, that's a problem. When you've got sexual orientation confusion, I mean, now all these different sexual orientations, there's I don't know, hundreds. So the kids can get quite confused. I mean, I see that often. When you've got impulsive or high-risk behavior, that's a worry. If there's failure to seek help, if it's not available, or there's poverty, you can't get to someone to help you, that's important. These kids that fall victim to bullying, not just at school, but also on social media, that's a huge thing. That's hectic. And then when they've got limited coping skills, so if they're already a little bit depressed, their coping skills isn't good at all. Then isolation or rejection. I mean, here we think of a COVID, like we've all been isolated, and the kids as well, and they're social creatures, They wanna socialize. And then also access to lethal means. So if you've got access to weapons or guns or pills, those are all little risk factors that we need to keep in consideration.
What would you look for as a warning sign in an adolescent, a possible suicide adolescent?
Okay.
Because as you say, they're up and down all the time. In any case. So are there any specific suicidal signs that you need to look for?
So let's try and help, because I've got two adolescents in my house as well, and they're interesting creatures. They're great creatures. Anyway, I love them to bits. The warning signs of suicide can mimic depression. It can also mimic a teenager, so one must be careful. But I think we need to take the teenagers or the adolescents seriously. If they say, I want to kill myself, don't just think they're just looking for attention. Just, make a note of that and just, see where that's coming from. They've got personality changes, so they'll become a depressed mood, they become very irritable, they become very anxious, sometimes aggressive or impulsive. They withdraw from their family and their friends, because they always, they get to home and they go into their room. I'm not talking about that, but when they start withdrawing from their friends or from activities that they used to do, that's important. And then change in behavior, like when there's academic decline, when they're not doing so well at school suddenly and they were like an A student, that's a bit worrying. When they struggle with concentration, when they neglect their hygiene, that's an interesting one. Also substance abuse, worry a little bit. When there's extreme change in their sleeping or eating habits, because we know teenagers also, they sleep for long. But if it's extreme, then one must worry a bit. When they're preoccupied with death or dying, they make jokes about it all the time, or they post on social media stuff about death and dying. Just watch out for that as well. Self-harm. When they're not interested, when you talk about the future, disinterest in talk about the future, and makes sense. When they start giving away their prized possessions, that's an interesting one. Yeah, one doesn't think about that. And then they also get physical symptoms. They can get headaches, tummy aches, nausea, or if they're on medication, they just say, I'm not taking it anymore. Just be careful with those as well. That, that's either don't take it properly or they just don't take it at all. So I hope that helps, I think.
Well, it just puts a heck of a lot more pressure on parents.
Yeah, but you see, the peak onset of mental health issues is when you go from a child to an adult. It's difficult. They've got physical changes like puberty. It's hectic. They've got hormonal changes, hormonal imbalances, cognitive changes. So they've got all the information that bombards them from technology and social media. They have to try and actually, process all of this. It's a huge amount of knowledge that they have to modify with their young brains, and then social changes and dynamics between friends, peer pressure. Now, you've got all of that. If you add substance abuse to that, or emotional distress in the family or with friends, or maybe an illness even, you've got a problem. Yeah.
Are there any preventative issues?
Yeah, people forget how important it is to talk. We all sit at the table with our cell phones in our hands. And I'm also one to blame. I like to watch my series. So, talk about it. It's very important to open your mouth and talk. So talk to family, talk to friends, see a therapist. This thing about talking about suicide encourages, it's a myth. It's not true. Talking can save a life. Communication can diminish those feelings of fear and guilt and shame, and it provides an opportunity to receive help. So adolescents thinking about suicide often, don't have the ability to cope. So their coping skills is definitely a problem. Then adequate support and intervention can empower them and give them those coping skills and problem-solving skills. More myths as well. You see, only certain people commit suicide. We all, anyone can. It's not just certain people. Or suicide is selfish and stupid. That's not true. It's for them. It's a means to an end of the suffering. So they see themselves as a burden to other people, and they want to put an end to it. So it's serious. Psychotherapy obviously helps, and medication obviously helps, but emotional support from your peers and your family can help these young ones in crisis. And it can prevent and treat depression and other mental issues and reduce suicide. Yeah.
What tips can you give on psychotherapy?
You know what? It's important to choose carefully. You need to know or think about what you want out of therapy. what type of therapy you want. Some therapists do preliminary conversations with you to see if you sort of can interact with them nicely and you're comfortable. That helps a lot. It's important to be yourself, so you don't go there and try and impress or please your therapist. You must be brave. You must have no filters. You must just put it all out there. You're not going to be judged. It's important for people to know that the therapist is not going to judge you. Other thing is you must ask questions. So don't leave the therapy room with unanswered questions. Ask. Therapy should be an interactive thing. State what your needs are. Then you can work with that. And do some research on your diagnosis or the treatment. You can do research. I mean, we've all got research at the tip of our fingers. Do that. Very important to let go of expectations. So, you see movies on TV where you go 2 sessions and the oak is right, or you got friends, oh, I went to that oak and helped me so quickly. Just go at your own pace and allow yourself to have your own process. So don't expect a quick fix. That's not going to be a quick fix, okay? And then finally, do the work. So whatever you learn in your sessions, apply it to your daily life. Don't just go to the session and leave it there. Think about what you've learned and apply it, and then you should have good success.
Thank you, Dr. Vicky.
Pleasure, Jeremiah.
Not the most uplifting subject.
No, it's a bit depressing. It's a bit depressing, But it's so important, and it happens. I see it every day.
Yeah.
So we have to look at those little adolescent children of ours.
Thank you. We'll catch you next week.
Okay.
Dr. Vicky Skitter on Medical Matters right here on Mansfield Today. Thanks for joining us.